Hello, welcome to FLIPSIDE. In this video, I am going to show you how I edit a photo to look stylistic and stand out. We are not going to go full composite mode with this one, but just use some external elements to overlay and stuff. Let's get into it. So the edit I will show you today will end up quite stylistic and up to each person's preference. If this kind of editing is really not your cup of tea, then I suggest you check out my last video, which was more of a naturalistic approach. So we have this guy surfing and this guy's just done surfing, and there's a good wave coming, and then there's a sunset happening. Obviously we're on the west coast. With this image, I am a little bit restricted because I couldn't find a raw version of this photo. I took this quite some time ago, so we're stuck with a JPEG, but we'll see what we can do. So what we want to do is get the image at a certain level where we're happy with contrast and exposure. So what I've done there is Control L, labels, and just adjust this window really is for basic exposure and the labels within a photo. So that's that, and adjustment, and want to go vibrant because it's still quite desaturated, and push that a bit. And at this point what we are looking for is some color. Don't worry if the color is not really the color that you're looking for, because sometimes the hue will be quite different to what the actual scene was or what you want it to be. But you can always sort of adjust that later. But we need some color to work with. So check up the saturation a little bit more. But just be careful not to go overboard, especially with lesser file formats like JPEGs compared to RAW, because there will be a lot more color noise happening as you increase these two sliders. So that looks much more vibrant. But I do not like the color in the sky, so I will change that. Color balance, and then start with shadows. Notice how very little increments make a big difference with some of these adjustments. So you gotta be careful not to go overboard. So midtones, wanna go still redder. Too much. Still a bit more yellow. Okay, and then highlights. So what I don't like is the color here, but then if I adjust the whole highlights, this makes it too red down here. So what I want to do is make a gradient selection. Let's go for the 80%, 80 pixels. Maybe 150. It's good enough. Then we want to adjust the color. So I want to go red. So I promised that this was going to be a little bit more stylistic, so we'll go much more red. And then very slightly magenta as well. And yep. No, I don't like it. Okay, let's try another way. Let's do lasso tool 180. Okay, that should be okay. Maybe bit too much. Okay, let's try that. So go image and then color balance again. Let's go red and ever so slightly magenta. Looks yellow enough, so stick that there, and the highlights a bit more red, and then maybe we do another selection here and hero. Actually, we'll adjust the feather so it's a bit more feathered. And then what I want to do is kind of mimic what I did before, but a little bit less of it. So it sort of blends in. Okay. So obviously, this is taking the photo quite a long way from what it was before. And yeah, and this guy's on a really nice wave actually. He's obviously would have taken off from there, and then like bottom turn, top turn. He's practicing top turn, and then hopefully you could do a roundhouse cut back and then do a 360. So the next thing we want to do is, because we made it so much more red and yellow up here, we kind of need to match it down here, but we don't want to make the whole thing like all of these shadows and highlights like that. So what we want to do is do it partially. Maybe and here. Nope. I know what we can do. Actually, let's just copy the layer. And then we will just delete the top of it. And then we'll make this much more redder and way more yellower. Notice how the shadow, well, shadow-ish midtones are heavily affected. And the highlights redder and yellower. So that's a bit extreme. You can do this in multiple ways, but I'm going to take the eraser tool and sort of delete the parts I don't want it to be quite so red. So let's go opacity about 8%. And I want it to be bigger for the moment, too big. About 600. Gonna zoom out and eraser tool, and then maybe it's quite bright here as opposed to here, so wanna raise some here because I don't like the look in these shadows. I'll check up the opacity of the eraser tool a little bit, very slightly still, and then smaller brush and keep going. Also, another thing you can do is just with this layer, you can try different blend modes. But that usually makes things quite extreme. But then you can also adjust the opacity of it. Let's look normal versus soft light. Normal and soft light. Look at overlay versus normal. Overlay, normal. I don't know. What do you guys think? Well, I'll just stick with normal. And then, yeah, still a bit to go. Because when the light is intense, it's usually intense in a very concentrated areas. Oh, that's too strong. So that's with the adjustment and without the adjustment. And I want to merge these two because some more filters that I want to apply to the whole image. So we'll rename this base, and then going to copy and rename this clarity. So what I'm going to do now is add a camera raw filter to the layer, to the clarity layer, and then I want to check this up to 100. No, just joking. Because this image isn't raw, it's I feel that it doesn't do it as well on JPEGs, but when you've got this applied to the whole layer, obviously it's affecting everything at the moment. The reason I created another layer for the clarity filter is so that I can do this partially like that I did before with the color. So 180, so we don't need micro contrast in the horizon. Let's just add more noise. So we will delete. Hopefully it's a soft effect. Yeah, so that's good. And then we kind of want to do what we did before. The eraser. So we want to delete, sort of erase the parts that don't need this much micro contrast or local contrast. We'll only leave some parts in the sky. So these parts don't need it. So the only parts I really want this effect is where the emphasis should go to. So in this case, probably this guy and maybe this guy, and the waves, of course. The waves are most important. But the thing is, too much clarity on the waves results in too much detail. So delete all that, all this, not that. You want to make sure you deal with the darker parts. So I want to get a little bit more precise. So notice the micro contrast is happening selectively as opposed to globally now, which is a good thing. And feel like could do with some more adjustments in this guy. They are quite dark, but to be fair, they were quite silhouetted in the first place. Nice spray, bro. Hope the missus got that on camera for you. And I wanna lighten these bits here so that the figure is more accentuated, and also the wave that he is on. This photo would have been so much easier with a tablet. We'll adjust opacity 50, and that looks about right. I feel like some parts of this horizon could be darker. Maybe I take the burn tool, exposure 10%, big brush, big brush, big brush, too big, and say 700 pixels, and then sort of paint it. That's too strong. We'll do 3%. Yeah, it will just sort of differentiate the background, make it slightly more interesting. Yep, I think we are about there. One other thing you can do is make a new layer, and this is just some screenshots from a light leak video. We'll try these two, see if they work. And then we'll go soft light, opacity, this whole thing's too orange, isn't it? So I'll keep that there about 25%, and then adjust the saturation slightly. You can stack multiple of these if you like, as long as the color scheme works. So I do like the fact that it's adding more of a washed look up here and up here, but I don't like the fact it's adding saturation everywhere. So desaturate slightly. Bit more. Maybe even all the way down. And now it'll just be adding texture and shapes to this. And even then, I think I need to go in and erase some parts of it. And I think it suits this whole scene the Sun City vintage vibes, the West Coast. And then one final thing I want to do is add grain. The same thing as the light leaks, the grain you can make it quite obvious that you've added grain, or you can make it quite subtle. And there's different types of grain. With the blending mode of the grain, it depends on what you want to do, but I almost always use soft light because that is the most subtle way of using it. And we want it vintage, but not quite. Like in the face vintage, so we'll think about there's okay. We'll go maybe 30%. Okay. And we'll just add a little bit more oomph for this guy. So I'm trying to make him a little bit more. I'm trying to make him stand out very slightly more. So just about done with this one. I will stop there for today. Thank you very much for joining me again. If you have stayed to follow me along, hopefully some of this gave you some ideas to apply to your own work. Please subscribe and maybe leave a comment if you would like to see more.